To this evening's town board meeting of Monday, July 24th, 2023. We begin the evening with an invocation by Deputy Supervisor Buckeye.
At the end of June, my family took a vacation to Delaware and Maryland. For the past 30 years, I have visited numerous national parks and historic sites, keeping up with our tradition of stamping our passport to the national parks. And I actually have two books here. One book we sort of filled, and I have another one. So we've been doing this for the past actually 30 years. The first one we went to, where we started this, was when we went to Yellowstone National Park. So on this particular trip, we visited the Assateague Island National Seashore, and I got a little brochure. There are always brochures at the historic sites. The Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad, and I have that one here too, and the Fort McHenry National Monument and Historic Shrine, and I have a book about that here too. At almost all of the national parks and historic sites, the National Park Service shows an educational film pertaining to the place that you are visiting. Such was the case at Fort McHenry. Visitors assembled in an exhibition area where the room then darkened for the movie. In general, the significance of Fort McHenry is that on September 13, 1814, at that location, the British abandoned their assault on the crucial port city of Baltimore. The British defeat was a turning point in the War of 1812, leading both sides to reach a peace agreement later that year. The inspiration of that victory for the Americans led to the poetic verse we know as the Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem. After this was explained in the movie, and near its conclusion, suddenly, the screens moved to the sides to reveal a panoramic view of the fort with a flag flying proudly. At that moment, everyone stood up to sing the national anthem. This was by far the most dramatic conclusion of a national park film that I have ever experienced. So in opening our meeting tonight, we should direct our attention to the final three lines of the song's fourth stanza. And that would be, "And this be our motto, in God is our trust, and the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." And now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we call roll, we're going to celebrate in a few moments the heroism and self-sacrifice of many of our town employees during the blizzard of 22. However, there is one note of commemorance that we need to share this evening. We have over the weekend had an active member of our highway department, Christopher Wertman, pass away, and we certainly share our sentiments with his family, and as a town mourn his loss. It's never easy to lose any members of the town family. Active members are hit specifically close to home. So I'd ask everybody just for a moment of silence. And with that, I would ask our town clerk to please call a roll.
Supervisor Copa.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Buckeye.
Here.
Councilmember Berger.
Here.
Councilmember Lavin.
Present.
Councilmember Zuccalla.
Here.
First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from Monday, July 10th, 2023. A motion to adopt those as they appeared in our agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on our agenda are proclamations and announcements, town boards, winter storm recognition. So the holiday blizzard of 22 was a specifically intense and stressful scenario, and for a municipality, who's charged with protecting the life safety of our residents. That was especially true. Over the past 6 months, the town has been actively engaged in after action reports and analysis, looking at what went right, what went wrong, where we can improve, what we can do to improve as a community, as leaders, and as staffs. And a couple of things have stood out. First, I'll acknowledge that we was reported, and it's probably the case that we had 4 lives lost due to delayed EMS response in the town. However, what doesn't get reported and what doesn't get picked up on a lot are the countless and hundreds of lives that were likely saved as an effort by our volunteers and our staff. And so tonight, we're going to recognize some departments and some individuals who specifically went above and beyond what their immediate job or call was. And so I'm going to come around, we're going to come around, and I'm going to grab a microphone, and we're just going to call you up. When you come up, please come up to receive a certificate. And again, the people who we're going to be calling up here tonight are people whose heroism is truly humbling, and it's an honor to be able to celebrate your achievements in the face of really, really terrible conditions. So with that. We're going to try to do this in as orderly a manner as possible. A little bit of it we're making up on the fly. First, I'd like to call up representatives from East Amherst Fire Department, if there's somebody here. Anybody from East Amherst? Okay. Eggertsville Hose Company. Okay. Ellicott Creek Fire Department. Thank you so much, your entire department. And Gettsville Fire Company. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. Maine Transit Fire Company. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much. North Amherst Fire Company. Thank you so much for everything your company did. Snyder Fire Department. Swarmville Fire Company. Oh. And Williamsville Fire Department. Fire Company. Thank you for everything.
Somebody,
I did.
I did see someone come in late.
No, did I? Okay. North Bailey Fire Company? Oh. All right. Good? Yep, that's fine. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Tickets?
Thank you. We have a couple of town-wide recognitions, town department recognitions. The first is emergency services. That's only a 3-person department, and 2 of them were stuck inside of the emergency operations center for the better part of a few days. So first, we're going to call up emergency services. So we have 2 people within that department who are individually receiving commendations. Jim Zamanek, who's here this evening, and Brandon Peters, both of whom were responsible, and I think on almost the entirety of the blizzard, maybe with a couple hours of sleep here or there, but Jim, thank you. So, anyways, thank you again. Thanks, Chip. Just as an aside, I'm not sure I could have gotten through any of that without Jim. Next, the Amherst Police Department. Amherst Police, on top of having the responsibility to go out on their normal shifts and deal with the crisis head on, also provided the backbone for our social media support. Also had a member kind of trapped within an emergency operations center, and just continued to operate, sometimes even with police vehicles stuck. It's really an honor to be able to present this to the police. Thank you. Our Central Fire Alarm Office. So Jim Keppel had really just about started with us in this role as the supervising fire dispatcher a couple months prior, and when we talk about commitment and dedication, our fire dispatch office handles fire alarms not just for Amherst, but for Clarence, Newstead, and Akron. Certainly had their hands full. So thank you to everybody in that dispatch office for everything you've done. Thanks, Jim. Our highway department. That's good. When you're a highway department operating in hurricane force winds, dealing with snow and drifts, having to get first responders to life safety calls, and then having the responsibility to make sure the town's dug out. It's a thankless job at times. And Pat, thank you for everything you and your department did to get us through and pull us out of this condition. Yeah, Scott? Our attorney's office. The attorney's office doesn't get any applause. Their attorneys. I just, what's interesting is everybody kind of takes for granted that there's some in front people and then there's some behind the scenes people. And when we needed to figure out how to put in emergency orders or how to obtain food from Wegmans that were all closed and shuttered, the effort falls to the town attorney, who inevitably has to write letters telling corporations we're going to use Knoxbox access to basically break into your store, take food, leave an accounting, leave an accounting, sorry, and then wordsmith the supervisor. But everything we do and everything town staff does has to be supported and has to be handled in a legal and fashion. Without our attorneys, we wouldn't be able to do that. So thank you, Marty. Marty had just started in that position weeks prior to this incident. So next, our comptroller's office. FEMA declarations and state emergencies create a lot of work. Procurement is difficult. It's difficult in any situation. It's especially difficult in emergencies. Our comptroller's office had to literally work through the entire storm in order to make sure that we were accounting for overtime, for materials, and able to purchase what we needed. So thank you, Daryl. And our finance department. Our finance department
Put your papers
has to come out. Has to deal with all the same procurement issues that the comptroller's office does. But they're inevitably the guardians of our contracts and our purchasing, our ability to use contractors. Takes a little bit of imagination, sometimes the willingness to say no to a supervisor in order to do the work correctly. So thank you, Linda, and your staff. All right. So there's a number of employees whose individual service to the town needed to be recognized within their departments. The efforts of a water pollution control facility need to continue to move, especially as people were stuck in their homes or businesses. And people at a water control facility were actually stuck inside that facility for days, ensuring that all of our sewer continued to run and that working long shifts. So under the direction of Jeff Burrows and our engineering services, Brian Armstrong, the following individuals I'd like to ask to come up. Brian Bennett. Kyle Bennett. we're gonna keep you up here, okay? Scott Halt. Frank Longo. Todd Masterjewski. Corey Valancourt. Joe Walgren. Hannah Clarkson. And Chris DeSalvo. I'd like to thank all of you, that's fine, different shifts, we got it. I'd like to thank all of these individuals, and Jeff, did you want to come up for department photo? Yeah. All right, thank you guys. Thank you. So we have a couple of departments that really service all of our residents. Combined, our senior services staff and our youth and recreation department are departments that you could tell care passionately for the individuals within our community, and under the direction of Executive Director Mary Diana Pooley and our Senior Services Director Melissa Abel. And we have the following, we'd ask the following people to please come up. So first, Melissa Abel. I'm going to talk about what specifically these wonderful people did
We're not taking individual.
as an organization. So I'm going to continue to call Matt Cashiel. Sorry, Matt. If I get the last name close, then we're good, right? All right, close enough. Tammy Jacobs. John Jones. Karen Lysecki. Sorry, Lysecki. Okay. Pam Macadallo. Did I get that?
It's close enough.
Sorry. Lucy Miranda. Vijaya Tomar. We also have Emily Murphy from our assessor's office. Mark Abarno from our facilities. Rob Klump from facilities. Our Meals on Wheels Executive Director, Rick Ellis. From our Youth and Recreation side of the house, Brian Bush. We're too many. We gotta balance out here, guys. Can we shift some of you over to this side?
Yes.
Sorry. Can we move some more?
We're gonna have to rearrange
Yeah,
for the picture.
Laura Ehrenreich. We'll shuffle back.
Yes.
Michael Fries.
Fries.
Sorry, thank you. Linda Groff. Eric Guzdek, Connor Lennon, Jim Miles, Chris Riley, Brad Waltz, and Jim Whitehead. And then we have a combination for the department, and specifically thank Executive Director Mary Diana Pooley, who without Mary Di, again, I don't know how I would have stayed sane through all of this. But let me tell you a little bit about what this wonderful group of people did. They took firsthand responsibility for sheltering people who were stuck, gave up their Christmas Eves and Christmas days to stay at shelters and provide food, provide warmth, provide help and direction for hundreds of people in the town of Amherst who were stuck, many of whom were pulled out of cars and taken to shelter. They were responsible for change in direction a couple times. First, we thought we'd use the senior center for shelter and then had to shift quickly and use our Sheridan Drive facility. It was a harrowing task, to say the least, and all of the people who are involved in this certainly went above and beyond what their service calls were, and I can't thank you all enough. So thank you, everybody. And can we blend in a little and take a photo, and we'll get a couple rows going? Come on. We're gonna need a very panoramic lens here, so.
Why don't you guys move up and have people stand
Yep.
on the ground and some people stand
Oh, that's a good idea.
and then you can condense.
Sure.
Some people stand on the ground, some people can stand over. Yep, and you guys can use the steps and use this as your level. Yeah.
Feel it.
And then let these folks.
Wait, so you're, no, stop staying lined up. Come this way. Karen,
If somebody's got a full in right here. We need a spot right here. We got a spot right here.
Yeah. Okay, so. Thank
All right. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So lastly, some non-town employees, residents in the community who stepped forward and volunteered and worked along with our staffs that we wanted to recognize. And if you're here, please come forward. Joel French. Joel spent a couple days rescuing stranded motorists, and we appreciate that. Thomas Roma, Joanne Roma, and Ian Roma. His family adopted several individuals who were brought to a shelter, including at least one disabled person. Attending to their needs and dropping folks off after the storm, assisted with meals and all-round shelter operations. Phoebe Pitts. to be assisted in the kitchen and that we set up and kept coffee flowing and offered general help. Karen Tate, who also assisted in the kitchen, making sure that coffee and help were offered. Christopher Cahill and Corey Cahill. They organized the food and clothing drive with residents around the Founders Lake Court and brought hot meals and donations to our shelter. Thank you all. Thank you everybody who's been involved. Again, this is it's a very humbling experience for town board to be able to look at everybody who went to such extremes, and we thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So moving on, we have a couple of public hearings this evening. The first is a continuation of Resolution 529. That's a public hearing on 2350, 2360 to 2372 Sweet Home Road rezoning and request to amend declaration of restrictions. I'm going to motion to reopen the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd ask you to maybe give us a brief synopsis of changes that are reflected here, or what is reflected here in the request.
Sure. Good evening, Supervisor Colpa and members of the Town Board. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, Essex Homes of Western New York, Inc. Also with me is Kevin Curry. As the supervisor indicated, this is a continuation of the public hearing he held on June 20th. At that public hearing, there was one additional piece of information that I believe it was you, Supervisor, who asked for, and that was some type of visual site plan that would give people an idea what the impact of the request that we've made, the request to modify one of the zoning conditions imposed back in October of 2018 to allow select windows on the rear second-story loft space in the interior buildings. I'm going to walk through very quickly, I think just again, acclimate everyone with the project site, which you can see on the aerial photograph. Consists of 3 separate addresses, again, previously rezoned by the town board after a lengthy review process. Oh, I don't know what that was. I'm not touching anything. Tim, is that you?
I don't think we're doing water pollution control.
Not yet.
Thank you. So as you recall, the project consists of 48 units. It's partially constructed, nearly 12 acres in size. The sale price currently per unit is approximately $500,000. Approximately 43.8% of this site will be permanent open space. And I referenced the zoning conditions that were actually imposed in March of 2018, not October of 2018. It is important to note that in connection with the original review process, we did agree to install a 6-foot fence for approximately 1,150 linear feet that will provide screening for the benefit of the homeowners directly to the west, which is the left, and the homeowners to the south, which is on the bottom. We've also agreed to provide 0.47 acres of permanent open space on the south side of that fence. It's an elevation of the buildings. It is important to reiterate that, again, we withdrew the request to rezone a portion of the site. Previously, there were 2 applications pending before you, one pertaining to a rezoning, one pertaining to the request to modify zoning conditions. There were some concerns raised about the rezoning, and as a result, we withdrew that application, and we did submit a letter at the request of the town attorney's office making that clear. That's going to give us some time to evaluate market conditions. Why we were requesting that rezoning was to allow rear single-story sunrooms and covered patios on the buildings located on the southern and western edges of the project site. So we're only here for one specific request, and that request is very limited. That request is to allow second-story windows on the rear side of the loft space in the 5 particular buildings that are highlighted in blue. Buildings 9, 10, 11, 13, and 3, which are shown there. None of the other buildings, including those that are surrounding the perimeter, 7 and 8, which are on the west side, 4, 5, and 6, which are on the south, and then 1, 2, and 14, which are closer to Sweet Home Road, would involve that request. It is literally limited to only 7 of the 48 units, interior on the interior portion of the building, and they're highlighted in blue. Let's go a little bit closer take on it. So the information that was requested, some of the concerns that were raised or questions that were raised during the public hearing held on June 20th is, what, if any, impact will this have on adjoining property owners? So this is a view shed site plan. It was prepared by John Barniak, our project engineer from Carmarina Wood Design. And what it clearly illustrates is if you actually look at the individual locations of the windows, they will be obstructed, meaning if you're sitting in one of those windows on the rear side, the second-story loft space, and looking out, to a large degree, if not entirely, no matter what direction you're looking, you're going to be obstructed, first and foremost, in many instances, by the building that's directly across, or secondly, if you can see beyond that, buildings 4, 5, and 6, which will be constructed, but have not yet been constructed on the southern portion of the site. It's also important to note, again, we're installing that 6-foot fence for the benefit of the adjoining property owners. And as you can see, there's no guarantee it will always be there, but there is very dense vegetation on the rear sides of those 3 or 4 homeowners, along with that permanent open space here that is subject to the deed restriction. So it's our position that this request, again, that's been modified and is now very limited, will have absolutely no adverse impacts on the quality of life of the existing nearby homeowners. It is important to note that the Planning Department has provided you with a draft of a negative declaration prepared pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and a draft resolution that would allow you to approve the request, the limited request to modify zoning condition number 4 imposed by this board in 2018. I want to make it clear that the language of that request would specifically and unequivocally state that does not apply to buildings 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 14. All of those buildings highlighted in red that form the perimeter of the project site. So with that being said, what we would ask you to do this evening is, of course, close the public hearing, issue the negative declaration, and approve, again, that limited request to modify zoning condition number 4. If there's any questions, either myself or Mr. Curry or Mr. Curry would welcome the opportunity to address them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to start with board questions.
I'd like to start, just a clarification. I had some questions, and I talked to Dr. Howard this afternoon. And do you have the seeker to apply to the whole parcel 2350, 2360, going to 2372 Sweet Home Road? Because in the papers, it wasn't exactly clear. Under the development review actions, resolution 624, 625, they're just speaking about 2350. But I was told that the parcels have been merged, and
Yeah,
it's
so
all under 2350?
It's all 2350, but because for emergency access purposes, there are individual building numbers, but the actual address of the site is 2350.
Would there be a way to maybe more clearly reflect that with what you just said
Well, that entire site, let's go back.
on the documentation, going forward, so that there would be no confusion, because it was somewhat confusing to me.
Yeah, I use the address.
Spent a lot of time reading it through.
I use the addresses the planning department asked me to use.
Well, I'm just asking about going forward, because it could be confusing for future people that might want to reflect back on what we did today. I don't know.
Yeah.
as a suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely, but I reference this entire site as 2350 Sweet Home Road.
Mr. Hopkins, can you go back? Nope, the other way, sorry. One more, right there.
Sure.
So I understand the line of sight piece with buildings 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
My request would be outside of the fence, to consider this, I would want to see some kind of trees, or I know you have vegetation on the resident side, but what about vegetation on the petitioner side?
Yeah,
Would they
but
be
you-
committed to putting some trees up at the very least?
Absolutely. The town has very intensive landscaping requirements, and as part of the site plan that was approved subsequent to your approval back in March of 2018, there is an approved landscape plan that shows very extensive landscaping throughout the site.
So trees, not just like ficus.
No trees, bushes, shrubs. Compared to today, there's no vegetation. And we're still following that landscape plan. I want to make sure that's
That would be
clear.
along the southern part of 6, 5, and 4.
Yeah, there's landscaping basically being proposed everywhere on the site. Per the town's, again, pretty stringent requirements.
All right, anything further from the board at the moment? All right, I'm sure there's some residents here. I know you've had an opportunity to speak in the past, but if you have questions or further comments, please come forward. When you come up, I'm just going to ask you to restate your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Joan Stone. I live at 550 North Ellicott Creek Road. It would be the farthest home on the left, on the bottom. Yeah. And we've all spoke many times on this issue, expressing our concern for privacy, and we do not want the windows on the upper second level of the homes. This is very interesting because it's only one tiny little piece of my property. I mean, I use the backyard. We use the entire the wooded area. We use that regularly. I mean, the view. You just have to take into account the whole area of our property, not just where that point is for the that the angle is for the windows, if that makes sense. And my only thing I do want to say is the buildings 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8 are not there. There's no telling if they will be built. I mean, they're selling slowly. This project has been going on for many years because the buildings are taking so long. So my concern is between this time now and when, because there is nothing there for 4, 5, and 6, so there is no blockade right now. And who's to say that they'll ever be built? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Bartley, 574 North Elka Creek. Again, I wanted to reiterate that the deed restricted area in between the two properties that they own is 100% deciduous. It means in the winter, it's all sticks, okay? And when we negotiated for 2 years with a previous developer, Rob Savarino, he had a plan where we could have input to densify that deed restricted area, okay? Not with just shade trees, but with tall evergreens. This is very, very expensive, okay? So this, I don't know what the Amherst plan is. We've never been asked anything about the landscape, and it's in the declarations that we're supposed to have input on that. But as far as I know, we're looking at sticks, and if you put more shade trees up, we're still gonna be looking at sticks. And I also want to reiterate that that property is a good 2 to 3 feet higher than the rest of our properties because it was built up to be made shovel-ready with tons and tons of stone, okay? So I'm not sold by what you're showing me here. That doesn't give me, I'm sorry, it just doesn't give me a clear cut. You know, I've showed you pictures the last time was here of my patio, what it looks like in March, okay? This doesn't satisfy me. Like I said, these buildings 4, 5, and 6 might not get built till 2028. Who knows? $550,000, they're not selling real quick, you know what I'm saying? But other than that, you know, we've had 2 years of discussion with the planning board. We obtained the supermajority twice. We've hired attorneys. We've had meetings at the Amherst Library with the previous developer. I don't know what more we can do that you'll understand this is not something that we want. So I thank you for your time. That's all I got for you.
Hello, my name's Anthony Chungben. My wife over there is Lorraine Townsend. We own 620, 598, and 647 or 645, which is across the street. So we're on the full southern border, opposite of 4 and 5, building 4 and 5. So I wanted to talk about the extensive landscaping. So we were not at any point involved in the extensive landscaping discussion. And I also wanted to say, so their land, they say they're going to put a 6-foot fence up. Their land is already 4 feet taller than our land. So on those buildings 4, 5, and 6, their 6-foot fence is barely going to cover the grade difference between their land and our land. So they'll be right into our land. So just wanted to say that whatever their extensive plan is, I know it was in the declaration, there's been no input from any of the neighbors on how that's going to be set and how dense that's going to be. So just wanted to make that comment on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Can we hear from the developer about the, can we hear some responses?
Yep.
Again, I would note, obviously, buildings 4, 5, and 6 are not there. And I think that's why there's been some consternation to begin with. We have every intention of building those buildings. Units are moving. I don't think anyone could have anticipated the COVID-19 pandemic, which certainly slowed progress, and in fact, at times, was impossible to construct. I do want to note that the vegetation, as I indicated, on the rear of the existing homeowners is not ours. We acknowledge that, but it is there. And instead, I want to focus on the distances. So, for example, the closest in any instance where there's a rear second-story loft window to an adjoining home is 290 feet, which is a football field here. And then the furthest view, is from building 3 all the way back to Mr. and Mrs. Stone, which is 710 feet. Mrs. Stone made a good point that we had to pick a vantage point. So we picked the vantage point of the homes. Chris and hers property goes all the way back here. But if you picture you're standing in their backyard where they use this area, the view is still going to be obstructed. So I mean, I think almost in every instance, given it's only those 7 interior units, much less than we wanted, I think we're protecting the residents. And again, I also want to note this is not the end of this review process. We will need some additional approvals. The neighbors were willing to meet with myself and the previous project sponsor. We've actually had a meeting with them earlier this year, and we're certainly willing to continue to engage in those discussions.
So,
What about the landscape plan? Do you have any comments about the
landscape
types
plan-
of trees?
So the landscape plan that was approved by the planning board, and that was as a result of a public hearing, shows a mixture of evergreen and deciduous trees. It was designed by a licensed landscape architect and was reviewed and approved by a town's licensed landscape architect. Do I know the exact placement and type of trees? No.
Okay.
But it's very extensive. And there's a planting schedule that goes along with that plan.
so
If I may. A number of residents have brought up the question that they don't know when these particular buildings, 6, 5, and 4, might be built. Do you have a projected construction date?
Kevin, do you have any information on what you would anticipate on behalf of Essex Homes? Or give your name.
I'm Kevin Curry from Essex Homes. Our plans are to construct this building next. This building will also then, when you see these two are existing, and if they all had the rear windows, they would only look at one another. period. We would construct this next and then keep going back into the project. Overall, the timeline will be determined by the market conditions. We would expect it to be a few more years of construction. Yes. It is also important to note it is a condominium. And as a condominium, as a developer, you have to build the entire project. You can't fail to build any portion of the project whatsoever. You have to build all the units. And one other point I would make, this supervisor made actually last meeting, was whether the rear of a building is looking out or the front of a building is looking out, it's the same result. Right now, the fronts of the building all have the same vistas. The fact of the matter is, whether it's the back of this building or the front of this building, there is no vista here but for a slight channel. There's actually no vista whatsoever to the south because it's completely covered. There's no vista at all. But to the extent that there is, before those buildings are built, it already exists on the front of the building. And then it's important to note that those vistas, again, the minimum distance is 300 feet, 290 feet, a football field. Most of them are more than 1.5 football fields in distance. So any sight lines, I don't want to say that they're not relevant, but boy, that's a long way. And you'd have to be able to see 1 to 2 football fields through multiple buildings and through multiple trees and a fence and vegetation that we plant. We purposely went out of our ways really to do our very best and limit the discussion to these because it's our feeling that there's no impact on the adjacent neighbors. And I thank you for your time.
So my vistas aside, right? So this deed restriction got recorded as a series of deed restrictions, or this not deed restriction, sorry. This requirement got recorded as a series of requirements.
One declaration of restrictions with numerous
I
requirements
understood.
there.
But so when we first got this in front of us at a public hearing, it was, hey, we want this zoning change and we want this declaration of restriction lifted for some of these parcels or some of these units. And then it was, oh, okay, we're not going to pursue the zoning change anymore, so we're just going to ask for this declaration changed, and we're going to, provide what in return? That's my question. Okay, so the residents, and rightly so, should probably feel like, hey, if you start changing the declarations of restrictions, then who's to say Essex isn't back in here with a requested zoning change on 4, 5, and 6 in 3 months, 4 months, right? And who's to say they don't come back in with the same declaration of restriction requests on those units? And what's the trade-off, right? So he gave me a diagram showing me a single vantage sight line to a single vantage sight line, right? What I was looking for is somebody to actually put a camera in the window of the one that's already built to show me what the panoramic view looks like. It's not that hard. You've got roof access. You got to have a lift on site somewhere, or I think you have one of these actual dormered out, right? Am I wrong? I thought one of these was built out.
There was one built by accident with a rear window, and it was
Okay, but that's
closed
there.
back. Yeah, the building's there.
The dormer's not there anymore? You took the dormer out, or it's still there?
Window out.
Took the window out, right? So you got a board over it or something?
I don't know.
Right, but I'm saying what I want to see is what is that?
It's finished. I mean,
What
it's-
does that panoramic look like? In not on a straight line, straight path. What does it look like? But from an elevation looking down, what does it look like? And what's the putback? It's, hey, we're gonna triple the amount of pine that we're putting into our planting bed. We're gonna provide X, Y, or Z in the neighborhood as an offset to this request because now we're selling units, at least in 8, 9, 10, 12 units that are going to be fundamentally different with an extra bedroom. So, you know, what is the
Well, I want to note that all these units have rooms there.
Right,
It's just
but-
adding a window and
right,
up to
which
7
makes it a
units.
bedroom,
Right.
as opposed to a laundry room or something along those lines, or utility room or closet or whatever.
Right.
So, what I'm asking is then, what is the trade-off? You're asking the residents to live with the thought that a deed what seemed like a restriction could be changed. So what is the trade-off? What are the guarantees that this is it? We're not asking for more. What is the improvement to the site that's going to be made? What does the panoramic view from that elevation look like? Like, there's some more homework that has to be done.
Well, I mean, we withdrew the rezoning request because that was the concern. The concern, again, was the possibility of adding sunrooms.
That was the concern on.
rear of those buildings.
That was the concern on, for this board, that was the concern on day -1, right? We got it, you already asked us to withdraw that zoning request. So now we're dealing with the condition that you're asking for, and what I'm asking is, what's the offset for it? And I, you know, aside from this drawing, I haven't seen a lot of offset, and that's my concern at the moment with this thing is, I don't think it's an unreasonable request to add dormer rear windows. I know what it gives you, and it gives you those extra bedrooms, which could be very good, right? We need more housing, we need more space for people, but in response to that, I'm looking for a more clear visual of what the impact is on the residents, and then we can talk about what the trade-offs are going back the other way.
Okay, I mean, today's the first we've heard of a panoramic view. I just want to make it clear that that was not brought up.
I mean, we could go back to minutes and semantics last time, but I certainly wasn't envisioning a single point diagram. You know, I mean, so, I mean, if you're asking me, I'm not at a point where I could say, hey, I envision myself voting for this restriction under the current conditions.
No, and that's not what I'm pushing for. What I'm asking is, I just want to know if there's additional information that you want. I just want to make sure we leave this evening with a clear understanding of what it is. That's all.
I would like to know what offsets you're proposing, and those offsets.
What do you mean by offsets?
I don't even. I haven't even is it part of the packet that I missed? But where's the planning plan? Are you planning to double the? Are you going to go to a higher caliper spruce so that the tree's more mature and it has more site, blocking? Are we going to see an actual time frame on 4, 5, and 6? Are we going to get some kind of written declaration that 4, 5, and 6 aren't going to proceed with the same requests that these buildings are? You're not going to just come back in a year. Like, I mean, it's right now it's messy, and I'm saying if you want me to say, hey, we're going to lift a restriction that we put in place as a board, as a condition of zoning, then there needs to be a conceivable offset. I mean, if I'm looking at these residents here, and you said, hey, we're going to go from putting in, 1 or 2 inch pines, and we're going to put those in, and they're going to take 20 years to mature, versus, hey, we're going to put every other pine in with a tree spade, and we're going to put them in at 6, 8, 10, 12 inches. I doubt you're going to do that, but if you said, hey, we're going to do something like that, that would be a sizable difference in approach, right? Hey, what are we doing here that is going to give us some confidence that this deed restriction is getting wiped out by something the residents can accept as an offset?
Yeah, I guess all I would say in response is, if there's any additional information you want, we'll certainly take a look at it. I do want to make it clear that we're not asking to eviscerate that particular condition that was imposed. This is a very limited request for relief, and the whole purpose of this view shed plan was, and I think it does illustrate, it may not be exactly what you were looking for, Supervisor Culpa, that it won't have any impact.
Okay.
Well, I guess just to follow up on what the supervisor said, I think it's like, what would be some remedies for some of the concerns that the residents continue to bring up, and what would be some assurances? I guess something more like concrete. And also, I'm just going to reiterate what I started with, some clarification about what 2350 Sweet Home Road really means, because that really isn't in the paperwork. and I spent a lot of time reading it, and it wasn't clear. So really going forward, so that there's no confusion, there are some maybe words that should be revised or clarified.
Again, I want to clarify, the project site is 2350 Sweet Home Road. Think about it, if you're working at a fire department, you need individual building numbers so you know how to respond. Those are just literally building numbers that are utilized for convenience purposes. It's 2350 Sweet Home Road.
So I'm
And
gonna.
again, I use the addressing that I get told to use by the town. So
Just maybe if you can just explain, have
Okay,
a
that's
paragraph
fair.
to explain that.
I can do that.
I'm
you.
a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So this is on, later on in the meeting, under Resolution 624, 625. My suggestion is that you probably, given the current constraints, probably.
We put them on the agenda, we would
I
be
know,
the ones
but I'm
to
saying- I would
withdraw
say
them.
You probably don't want us to take a vote tonight.
Well, I'm going to defer to you, of course. You're the town board. You're the elected
So-
officials. All I would note is if there's some additional information you want, which it seems there is, your next evening meeting, I think, is on August 21st.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it would be my intent to withdraw 624 and 625 until August 21st, I guess it is. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the idea that, frankly, I want more information, but I think that there's needs to be some different putback. So, okay. Residents here, I know that doesn't give you clarity yet, but by the 21st, we should have this as a settled matter. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on Resolution 621, which is the 2023 Engineering Department Sewer Building Improvements and Demolition. It's a bond resolution, the amount of $185,000.
I'll second opening the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi. My name is Ann Dafchuk. I'm an architect with the town here. Part of my job is to help maintain our existing buildings that the town owns. So we have a very brief presentation tonight. We have on the next slide a quick outline. We're going to discuss the project, the proposed location, the financial impact, and tax summary. If you look at the location map here, this is 1042 North Forest. The southwest corner of the site is the former wastewater treatment plant, which is no longer used, at least not the buildings. And we have several buildings which are no longer functioning in that capacity. In particular, we have Plant 1, which was Plant 1 lab building. That building was repurposed for storage. It was recently found to have structural deficiencies and has been vacated. We also have buildings 4 and 5, which are currently in use for mobile sewer pump equipment and operations. If we switch to our next slide, we also have just an aerial view showing those photos. The lab building is about 1,400 square feet. I believe buildings 4 and 5 are about 4,000 or 5,000 square feet total, but there are a series of little additions. Our proposed project plan is the demolition of the lab building due to its structural deficiencies. We're also looking at making some building envelope upgrades to buildings 4 and 5. So that includes roof, exterior finishes. We also have some doors and frames that have just corroded over time that need replacement. As part of the sewer maintenance department, they're tasked with providing the necessary infrastructure. So these building enhancements will really just kind of keep their operations functional. We want to share the financial summary on this. This is a $185,000 bond. There's some demolition and construction associated with the repairs and the demolition of those buildings. There's also some design and testing that would be required in order to make that feasible. And then we also have our legal administrative fees. Lastly, here you can see that on a $250,000 house, we're looking at about 26 cents per year tax impact. So with that, I would like to ask if we have any questions.
All right, any questions for our architect about the demolition and planned building shell
4 and 5.
renovations from this board? Anybody from the audience? All right, seeing none, I'm going to motion to adopt the seeker findings associated with the Engineering Department Sewer Building Improvements and Demolition Bond Resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'll motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
And
you.
I would ask our town clerk for a motion the resolution as it appeared in the agenda.
Second.
And I would ask our town clerk for a voice vote on the resolution, please.
Supervisor Coppa,
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Buckeye,
Yes.
Councilmember Berger,
Yes.
Councilmember Lavin, and Councilmember Zucala.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the resolution 622 with public hearing on the WPCF multi-project bond resolution in the amount of 1.325 million. I'll motion to adopt or to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, Town Board and Supervisor Culpa. My name is Jeff Burrows. I'm the town engineer. And the presentation before you tonight is the 2023 multiple project bond hearing for the 2023 CIP projects E10, E12, and E13, all centered at the treatment plant. The public hearing consists of multiple projects. The multiple project bond resolution includes Project E10, which is the design of a new cryogenic oxygen plant replacement. Project E12, which is building and equipment infrastructure, Phase 4, and Project E13, HVAC facility improvements, Phase 5. I flashed this overall schematic of the treatment plant before, not to educate you as to where the projects are, just to show the scale and the scope of the facility. There's 58 buildings and structures encompassed on the campus. And the first project that I'm going to talk about is Project E10, the cryogenic oxygen plant replacement design. The facility generates high purity oxygen on site to support the microbiology of the activated sludge process. This system is original equipment and nearing the end of its useful life. It suffers with poor energy efficiency. There's a high cost of maintaining the existing system, and unfortunately, it's difficult to find replacement parts due to the age of it being about 48 years old. Sorry, excuse me. The project, the design is a project, we're looking at replacing the existing system with a new pure ox type, different type of technology that would provide much more efficient energy profile and be much more reliable from an operations standpoint and lower maintenance costs. And the project schedule is designed in 2023 and 2024. Project E12, this project, the financing will be utilized as a catch-all to fund some existing projects that may be short-funded. The areas that we're looking at improvements, we've got a roof system rehabilitation project where we're focusing on 3 or 4 building roofs. There's parapet walls and precast wall panels that are being rehabbed and repaired. There's a gravity thickener solids handling project, and we also have an electrical upgrades project that are currently open and all under design. So, like I said, this is a catch-all project. We're going to use this portion of the funding to hopefully plug holes and complete those projects with fall and winter bids and construction in 2024 and 2025. And the last project is the HVAC facility improvements, Phase 5. As you can imagine, the facility has multiple unit heaters, rooftop units, makeup air units, et cetera, et cetera. Many of these units are located in harsh and corrosive environments. This project is currently in design, and we're going to use this to supplement the project as well. That's going to be bid this fall and winter and be constructed next year. So the breakdown of the project, we're looking at $350,000 for the cryo plant replacement design, an allocation of $800,000 for building and equipment infrastructure Phase 4, and $175,000 to plug the holes on HVAC facility improvements Phase 5 for a total bond resolution amount of $1.325 million. And the overall requests will impact taxes like this. The cryo plant is a 5-year bond. The tax impact is $1.56 per $250,000 property. Building and infrastructure, equipment infrastructure is 80 cents per $250,000, and the HVAC improvement is 42 cents per $250,000. And with that, I will open it up for questions and comments. Thank you.
All right, questions first from the town board regarding the projects.
I have a question.
Sure.
Jeff, are you saying you're retrofitting an existing 40-year-old cryogenic? Did I hear
No,
that right?
we're replacing it.
You're replacing it?
We're replacing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It's shot.
I would assume.
Thank you. Anything further from the board at the moment? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, I'm gonna motion. Well, so there are 3 separate seeker findings associated with this bond resolution. The first is the seeker finding regarding the HVAC facility improvements Phase 5. I'm gonna motion to adopt the findings associated with that portion of the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'm going to motion to adopt the seeker findings associated with the WPCF building and equipment infrastructure Phase 4 portion of the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'm going to motion to adopt the seeker findings associated with the WPCF cryogenic oxygen plant replacement design.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'll motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I motion the bond resolution in the amount of $1.325 million for the multi-project bond for the wastewater treatment facility.
Second.
On the question, I would ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa.
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Buckeye.
Yes.
Councilmember Berger.
Yes.
Councilmember Lavin.
Yes.
And Councilmember Zucala.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. All right, next item on the agenda is Resolution 623. It's a public hearing on 1350 Eggert Road proposed rezoning. Before we begin this public hearing, I just want to let the residents who may be here regarding this project know town board does not take action. This town board does not take action on rezoning items the first night of a public hearing. So we're going to open a public hearing, and likely this action wouldn't be decided before the August 21st board meeting at the earliest. So with that, I will motion to open the public hearing regarding 1350 Eggert Road proposed rezoning.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, good evening once again. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, 1097 Group, or 1097 Group LLC, care of Ellicott Development. We're here this evening in connection with the request to amend the zoning classification of 1350 Eggert Road from OB TNB1 to TI 2.5, which stands for Traditional Infill 2.5. The site itself is shown here, located at 1350 Eggert Road. It is the site of the former Canalesian School, which closed in approximately 10 years ago and was purchased by my client in 2013. Subsequent, April 28th of 2014, a predecessor version of this board approved a rezoning from what was then CF TNB1, which is Community Facilities TNB1, to OB TNB1. Site plan was approved by the Planning Board on June 19th of 2014. There were multiple environmental reviews conducted by not only this board, the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. A portion of property located here was donated to the town of Amherst at no cost at the request of the town board. And it's also important to note in connection with that existing building, the former Cannellation School, which has been now redeveloped into apartments. There's this portion here, which is approximately 5,139 square feet. At that time, going back 10 years ago, we envisioned as being commercial space. To date, despite the fact that there's been a concerted effort for now a decade to lease that space to a commercial tenant, that has not occurred. If the requested rezoning is approved, it'll allow phase 2 of the project, which we'll show you in a second, as well as the conversion of that space into 3 additional apartments inside the existing building on the first floor. This is a copy of the most recently updated concept plan that we submitted with the application. In blue is the approximate footprint of the former Cannellation School. There is an access easement for the benefit of the group home behind the site, which is 20 feet. We have to stay out of that easement area, which is highlighted in yellow. What we're proposing currently is behind the existing parking lot on the project site is two-story multifamily buildings consisting of 8 units per building. Those will be oriented, this building will be oriented towards the hill in the easement, and then this building, which you can see is perpendicular, would be oriented towards the back of the former Cannellation School. We are showing pedestrian connections. This is a highly walkable area, sidewalks, and this project ultimately, if approved by the town board, would again require design advisory board recommendation as well as site plan approval from the planning board. If you approve the land use decision, obviously you're not approving the scope of the project, but it's to illustrate what our thought process is. That's an elevation plan of the building prepared by Sutton Architecture. I would note we had the opportunity to participate in a virtual meeting with Daniel Latowski and a representative of Code Studios on last Friday. They asked us to consider some modifications to the concept plan. While we just got that input, we are certainly going to take a look at it and then report back to the planning department prior to issuing any decision on the requested rezoning. It is important to note the planning board did hold a public hearing on this request during its meeting on May 18th and adopted resolution by unanimous vote, number 1, recommending the issuance of a negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and then secondly, and more importantly, requesting approval or recommending approval of the rezoning from OB-TNB1 to TI 2.5. The planning board did make some very specific findings that's subject to some possible revisions of the concept plan, that it was their opinion that this request is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. It is important to note the comprehensive plan has been updated significantly since the original rezoning of the site was approved by the town board in 2013. Figure 6 of the comprehensive plan, which is the town's overall conceptual land use plan, denotes this area as appropriate for mixed use, along with those parcels that are located at that intersection of Eggert Road and Main Street, which is seen here. And more importantly, the town has now established figure 6A of the comprehensive plan, which denotes the appropriate locations for mixed-use development, including the infill zoning classification that we're seeking. And we clearly fall within one of those areas. While it's hard to see at this scale, this is the intersection of Main Street and Eggert. And the specific color or designation that's requested or recommended for this site is traditional areas. That's exactly what we're asking for. There's 2 zoning classifications that could apply, 2I 2.5, which would allow a 2.5-story building, and TI 4, which would allow a 4-story building. We acknowledge a 4-story building on this site would probably be viewed inappropriate, so we went to the less intensive of those 2 zoning classifications. Infill redevelopment of property is expressly encouraged again and again in the comprehensive plan, and those traditional areas are defined and described on pages 334 through 336. We think this is an important opportunity to provide some additional housing options on the site in a highly desirable and highly walkable area. I do want to note that this is also subject to an environmental review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. The project clearly does qualify as an unlisted action. Nonetheless, to ensure that we provided extensive information, we did submit Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form. We've submitted a geotechnical report prepared by Terracon Consultants, which was actually updated on June 28th of 2022. We have a no impact determination letter issued by SHPO on June 2nd of 2023. All of the infrastructure on this site will be privately owned and maintained. I mentioned the fact that this is simply a land use decision. Ultimately, we'll have to go in front of both the Design Advisory Board as well as the Planning Board. One of the benefits of these new mixed-use districts is they do require a more in-depth analysis of the architecture and the site layout by the Design Advisory Board. Finally, I do want to note that the Planning Director, Mr. Howard, called me late this afternoon to indicate that the town had received an email with some drainage concerns. He was kind enough to share that with me. I don't have an answer yet, but we are going to take a look at that. It was a photograph and I believe a video showing drainage running down the staircase into that park area. We're hoping that we can find out when that occurred. It could be a series of things. Number one, it could be a maintenance issue. Number two, it could be drainage coming on this site from off-site. As you know, the former department store site located directly to the south has perhaps one of the largest parking lots in the town of Amherst. And then finally, making sure that actually our on-site system is working well. I can't answer that question. I did forward that to Chris Wood, our project engineer. And rest assured, before we come back in front of you on August 21st, we'll have an answer to that. We will need to comply with the DEC's infill redevelopment, stormwater, quantity standards in connection with this project. So I guess all I would ask you to do this evening is consider closing the public hearing, scheduling a decision date, and then of course I welcome any questions that the members of the town board may have, or the opportunity to respond to any comments that you may receive from the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just note, so I did receive a DVD copy of the drainage video. I did give that to the clerk's office today. It will be added as part, submitted as on the record as part of the public hearing. And next meeting, we may be able to make that available on the display. I don't think we can't load it tonight, but
Sure.
So that is received. I'm going to start with any questions from the board on the front end of this. Deputy Supervisor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for mentioning what you did about the drainage. I did see the video, and it is quite concerning. So it'd be good to hear what the cause might be and how that might be remediated. Just a couple things again about the soils. It did say in the paperwork that 99% of the area was poorly drained, and so then that made me think about that video. And then in the part of the report from the planning board, it says under part of the resolution, it says, review by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act may be waived since potentially hydric soils have not been identified on the parcel. And I wondered how would that make sense when 99% of the drainage of the area, that says that it's poorly drained. So I didn't understand that. And also in one of the emails, which maybe is what you're referring to, one of the residents did say that if approved, the developer would be adding additional buildings to the site overlooking the park, which is land originally designated as a catch basin to prevent flooding of the Echo Park area, the area below. Because of the way it is, it's the slope and then the park is underneath, down below. So those are just kind of some of my concerns about some concepts that would need to be reconciled. Those are questions that I have.
Okay, let me take a shot at answering them very quickly. Number one, we are very familiar with the geotechnical conditions on the site. Obviously, we've been at this for nearly a decade. It is important to note that these buildings will not include basements, even though they could. But what will be required, and your building department does a very good job at this, they are going to look at the foundation designs, they're going to look at the geotechnical report, and ensure that we're following the recommendations. That is now required by the New York State Building Code. We're very familiar with those requirements. In terms of wetlands, I actually agree with your comment. It's not about the soils, it's about vegetation. If you visit this area on the site, I walk this area all the time. This is basically a manicured yard. There's absolutely no indication of any wetland vegetation. So rest assured, there's no wetlands on the site. There can't be. That would be subject to the jurisdiction of either the United States Army Corps of Engineers or the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. I did get the opportunity to glance briefly at the planning department at that video. Again, we'll look at that drainage issue. I would note that if you look at those videos closely, it's indicative that there was a drainage issue in that entire area, meaning it actually shows basically a river running down Crosby Boulevard. As you know, that's a hill coming down from Eggert Road. What I'm hoping that might suggest is a maintenance issue, meaning, hey, is there a catch basin that's plugged either on the road or on site? But I know, if you look at those videos closely, it's not simply drainage coming off this site and flooding that neighborhood. But we'll take a closer look. We have a very competent engineer. You have a very competent engineering department. And again, we'll have a more in-depth response to that.
Just one additional comment. Also, I did watch the planning board meeting when this was, like you said, it was approved unanimously.
It's May meeting.
The drainage issue never was brought up at all.
Right, correct.
Just
Yeah.
want to say that.
Yeah, I just became aware of it this afternoon.
So the site south of this, right, the old, whatever it is, Spectrum site now? Fidelis, whatever.
Now
Yeah.
Spectrum.
East or
Yeah, so is there a retaining wall between that property and this property? Is it, is it,
No.
no.
So, no.
Is it flush? Is it
I think
level?
it's close to flush. I think there's a little bit of a grade difference.
Well, it probably sheet right,
One of the neighbors says it's about a 3-foot difference.
okay, but the back end of it, you have a series of catch basins, or does it sheet drain onto this site?
I would assume, there's definitely catch basins in that parking lot. It's actually been redone not too long ago, but I'm not sure what their drainage system is on that adjoining site.
So you're basically kind of on the slope of the escarpment, right?
Yes.
And so, do you know what, like, your bedrock depth is?
No, but it's quite shallow.
Right. And then when you get down into the park, it's probably goes from shallow to pretty deep, right?
Yeah, it's older, just like the typical escarpment as it crosses Amherst east to west, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so I think really, one of the first things we're going to have to do is consider that whole southern edge of the site and talk about, infiltration and building infiltration. No, northern edge of the site. Consider, how you build infiltration basins or green infrastructure to restrict the water flow. And take it out of the storm system, which I'm guessing is just surcharging and causing a problem. But, that's all going to have to be evaluated, obviously.
Right, and we're going to have to play that forward to the next parcel and make sure that their drainage isn't coming onto our site. Because again, that's the large impervious area, is that parking lot directly to the south.
I mean, I don't think that, for me, the quantity of infill doesn't necessarily scare me. It's the quality of off-street runoff. And I suppose I have some questions about traffic disposition, right? Because you're really one way out of this thing, which is onto Crosby. And so one of my questions would be, and this is a question I have not been able to ask Chris Wood yet, or your engineers, but is there a possibility to connect through to the parking lot to the south, or is that impossible? It's one of those things I think that we're going to have to vet out a little bit.
I mean, it certainly would be possible. Of course, it would take the permission of the adjoining property.
Yeah, understood. I mean, Eggert there is tough, right? That's a tough street, and it's vehicle volume is one thing, but then it's also vehicle speed. I know that you don't control that, but the speed and volume there don't make it real conducive for residents. My concern is adding that. We want to see some kind of mitigation, and that's going to be something that we've got we've got to work on. So, okay, thanks. Anything further from this board at the moment? Guessing there's some residents here regarding the project, so I'm going to ask you to come up. Just try to come up one at a time or two at a time, and just state your name and address for record when you get to the microphone, okay?
Thank you for this opportunity.
Hold the
Can you pull the mic
microphone down.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Is that better? Okay, my name is Ray Volpe. I live on Crosby Boulevard, directly across from the park and across from the children's play area. One of the things I want to point out is that the site, the drawing that you have there is an ancient drawing. In 2018, a children's play area was built in Echo Park, and that's not shown on that drawing. It's in alignment with the steps, the concrete steps that go down the escarpment into the park. And in the videos that I shared with the board, you can see that that cascading water goes down those steps and is heading right for that park. My primary concern is the play area in the park. We don't want to see that destroyed. Ray Walter in 2018 managed to get a $100,000 grant to help build that play area, and the town contributed its own funds to it. It is widely used, it is extremely popular, and we don't want to see anything happen that's going to undermine that facility. I can help with some of the questions that came up earlier with some of the comments that I had. When this property, 1350, was originally the Eckerd Road School, there were no drainage issues, none whatsoever. Not into the park, not down the driveway, not in any direction, and no one had a problem with the school building being up there. When the property, when the Cannellation Center was built, there was a transfer of ownership. A section of the grassy area at the west end of the property was used to build a group home. The neighbors did not object to that because we thought it was for a good cause, but it did use up about 20% of the grass area that previously had been used, previously served to help absorb the water when there was a rainfall, okay? When that facility was built, water that collected on the roof, which could no longer drain into the grass, went into a drainage system down into the sewer, storm sewer system that runs along Crosby Boulevard. So it added to that. When the property was changed, ownership changed again, and the building was, the school building was converted into apartments. One of the things that happened was that a small paved area behind the school that was used for service vehicles was more than quadrupled in size to make parking for the tenants of the apartment building. That took up approximately 60%. These are my estimates. I'm not saying they're scientific. These are my estimates. That took up approximately 60% of the original grass area that was behind the school. And so we no longer had grass area back there absorbing water. We now had a hard surface. It was recognized at that time that there was going to be flooding from this situation. And a catch basin was installed in the northwest corner of the parking lot. And the water from the I shouldn't say catch basin, water holding tank, excuse me. The overflow from that tank was then piped down into the storm sewer system that runs along Crosby Boulevard. That system is not working. In the videos that I sent to all the members of the board, you can see that it's clearly not working. The videos that you got were dated in 2019, 2018, when the park was, when the playground was first being built, and that's obvious in the videos that were sent to you. They occurred again in 2019, when the play area was completed. Again in 2020. And I have a CD that I can share with you this evening from last Thursday's evening when the storm went through here. And once again, we had water cascading down those concrete steps into the park, flooding Crosby Boulevard and parts of Olney Street. So the problem is there. So irregardless of anything else that transpires, we need to solve this flooding problem because the park is at risk and neighborhood properties are at risk. I had some written notes, but I'm obviously not reading from them. I do want to say this, that there are no plans to increase the, to replace or increase the volume of water that can go through the storm sewer system. It's a part of what's called historic Eggertsville. It's been there forever. There were repairs made just last summer because of blockage issues. A liner was put into it, and thanks to that, we no longer have water bubbling up through these storm sewer covers. So that problem was resolved, and the system is working. Nevertheless, as we saw last Thursday, it simply can't handle the volume of water that is now being pumped into the storm sewer because of the buildings that have gone up, okay? This doesn't happen all the time, and we're not saying that it does. It happens when there's very heavy rainfalls. You can call them extreme if you want. However, I think we all know that extreme weather conditions are happening more frequently and they're more extreme. So we need a solution to this. Adding more buildings to this property, and you can see from that drawing, will take up the last remaining about 20% of the original grass area. It'll take up the last of that area. That area, by the way, in the first negotiations for this project, for the previous project, was supposed to be a catch basin. Okay, that got changed somewhere after the public meetings and became a holding tank. So water that now falls onto the grassy area will now fall onto the roofs of those buildings, and they will be routed through the downspouts into the storm sewer system, adding additional volume of water into that system. It can't handle it now. It's certainly not going to handle more water that's coming through that system. So I'm not sure what the resolution to this is, but we need a solution to it that doesn't jeopardize the park and doesn't flood Crosby Boulevard. And at this point in time, adding more buildings up there is just going to make this a bigger problem than we already have. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Dan Dolph, 278 Crosby Boulevard. I'm Ray's neighbor. I concur with everything Ray said. We've been there since 2004. We've seen the change of that from the Catalytion Center to the apartments. Overall, I think the apartment building has been a good neighbor and worked well with us. We've made some complaints about property issues and things. Our biggest concern, just like Ray said, is the grass. Where those yellow blocks are that are going to be the new buildings, it's all grass. There used to be more grass towards the top of the, really the bottom of the picture. There's a playground up there. I want to thank the town. The playground down below is an absolute gem. They've done a great job. The rec department's done a great job. And on probably 3 or 4 occasions in the last 5 to 7 years, I've seen the waterfall down the steps, and it's been after that parking lot's been expanded. So, we love, just like Ray said, we love the playground. It's an absolute popular site. I see out-of-state plates. It must be, well documented on Facebook and, the town's website. So that's our main concerns. The other concerns is also mentioned to be traffic as you add more cars coming out of Eggert. We're right across from the park, and we often go down Crosby and try to make a right or left. I have a 16-year-old who is getting his license, learner's permit right now, and I'm telling him to not make that left. So those are our concerns, and we thank the town board, and thanks, Ray, for spelling everything out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Berninger. I live at 312 Crosby, directly across the street from the staircase that floods. I don't so much want to address the drainage because that's been gone over. I want to address quality of life. Since those apartments have gone in, we have had M80s blown off in the parking lot. We've had all sorts of stuff going on, parties late at night out in the parking lot. Currently, there is a couple and a younger guy that come out and sit right at the top of the stairs, right there where these new buildings are proposed. they come out like clockwork and smoke their bong right above the playground, hacking up a lung. And I mean, it's enough to wake you up in the morning when they sit on this bench. Mr. Hopkins was saying that Eggert Road is zoned for this, is a great spot for all this. This is not Eggert Road. This is across the street from a single family neighborhood. And our neighborhood has been not impacted well by this. We also have dogs that come from that apartment complex, and the people don't clean up after them. So our lawns have dog poop on them. They just have, I don't think they've been a good neighbor. I have called Ellicott Development myself and complained about the dog poop. I've called the Amherst police on a number of occasions during the night when I've been woken up, and nothing has changed. And now we have the bong smokers. And pot is legal. I have no problem with that, but I don't think you want kids exposed to that. Somebody sitting on a bench doing that, and then you want to add 16 more units.
Okay, thank you. Can I, just for clarification, are these meant to be rental units, or are these are these townhomes?
No, these would be for lease, just like the units that are
For
currently
lease.
there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, because we weren't sure whether they were going to be condominiums, which feels a little safer. But we're now hearing that this is going to be a transient population. My name is Pamela Sander, and I reside on Olney Drive with my husband, John. From our front lawn, we can view Echo Park and the site under consideration for the variance. If the variance is approved, Ellicott Development would be allowed to build, I wrote down condos because that was my understanding, apartment dwellings on the property adjacent to Echo Park. One plan under consideration involves 2 8 or 9 units and a strip of connecting garages. So basically, as it's been previously described by Ray, all of this existing small lawn area, which is this little buffer between the group home and the parking lot for 1350 Eggert Road, the apartments there, that's all going to be gone. The property under discussion consists of a section of the existing parking lot used by the tenants, and I'm sorry, I'm repeating what I just said. Immediately adjacent to the property is Echo Park, which we've been talking about, which is a jewel in our neighborhood. We're very proud of it. We've had relatively few incidences in this neighborhood park. It's utilized mostly by young families and children. I'm going to address another well-known problem in Amherst, which includes our neighborhood, and that is rats. We often see rats scampering between the properties in our yards, across the street. We see dead rats. Residents, many of my neighbors, have been forced to use exterminator services to keep the rat population under control. Many of these rats thrive on the garbage found around the dumpsters and strewn elsewhere on the Ellicott Development property site. Last year, the problem was so bad that I had to ask Ellicott Development to address the problem, and at the time, I communicated with the secretary for Ellicott Development. I sent her emails, which included pictures that I took at the top of the escarpment, the top of the hill. And this hill is still utilized by many children to sled every winter. And children for decades have enjoyed sledding on that hill. In addition, housing more people on a small, already overly developed property will almost certainly exacerbate existing traffic problems and further tax an already inadequate sewer system. We've talked about the sewer system. We've referenced this one driveway that is supposed to accommodate The people in the existing apartments, these new people, if this proposed two-building property comes to fruition, and it's used by the group home, which regularly has to take people to the hospital, appointments, so there's a lot of this congestion. I walk the neighborhood, I walk Eggert Road up to Main Street. I've nearly been hit several times when I am crossing that driveway, thinking the person coming out sees me, and they're too anxious to get out there and try to make a turn. Not that long ago, within the last 10 years, a woman was killed at that knoll trying to cross Eggert Road. I'd like to thank the neighborhood that came out tonight. So these lovely people, they're my people. They're from the neighborhood, and we're very deeply concerned about a proposal from a developer that we believe is threatening our quality of life and the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kristen Lane. I'm at 37 Only with my husband Andy. I'm an 8th grade English arts teacher at a local middle school, owner of 2 gorgeous pups, and this Thursday will mark year 2 of being a proud homeowner just down the street from the proposed development. I am against the request to amend land use for 1350 Eggert Road and the proposed development. My concern is the safety of our community due to increased traffic. The Eggert and Main intersection is already congested, like many people have already said, and traveling from Crosby to Eggert is a dangerous route for both vehicles and pedestrians as you have to navigate outgoing and incoming traffic from the apartments at 1350, roughly 10-ish feet, I'm not good with math, from Crosby. The hill down from Eggert and Main, along with the narrow drive at 1350, equate to obstructed views. It's all the more complicated with traffic coming to and from the church. We no longer walk our dogs, like many people have said, along that section, having nearly been hit by outgoing traffic one too many times. Yet, as someone who lives in the neighborhood, I see pedestrians, cyclists, runners trying to traverse this area daily. If the request to amend is approved, this area would be even busier and more dangerous due to more people and homes as they travel to and from the proposed building. The other aspect of safety I'd like to mention is tied to our beloved Echo Park. On May 3rd this past year, Step Out Buffalo named it one of 21 awesome playgrounds in Buffalo and Western New York. And they're right, it is awesome. People of all ages from around the community come to enjoy the ropes course, the giant balancing wheel, the soft sponge of the ground. My favorite's the spinning chair, and just have fun in a safe space. What Step Out didn't mention, though, is how people, especially children, use the entire area, even past its boundaries, like Pam was saying. They're up playing on the hill, which is where the proposed development would be. Daily, we see kids racing, rolling, biking up and down the hill. In winter, they're sledding. We see kids and families exploring up above to enjoy the view and more commonly to chase down a rogue ball. We see dogs and the humans sniffing about. The joy and the laughter we hear is unmatched and something I would hate to see threatened. With the proposal, like mentioned before, will come much more traffic, not just from the occupants. It might just be 8 buildings or 2 buildings and 8 whatever, but that doesn't account for the delivery drivers, the friends and family who are coming to visit, and everything is at the tip of your fingers. I order Lloyd's a lot, so I know they're gonna have a lot of traffic coming in and out. Before you vote, well, what I would say is it doesn't seem so much fear-mongering, but a stark reality that someone is inevitably going to get hurt if this is approved. Before you vote, I would ask you to please consider the safety of the children, the men and the women of this neighborhood, and more widely, the families who come from all over to enjoy it. Echo Park and the greater neighborhood deserve to be kept and preserved as a safe and vibrant space for families to adventure and play in. And I would just say to us, it's not a building site, it is our home. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and please vote no to amend the land use. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Excuse me, if I could amend my my remarks, because as I said, I didn't read from my prepared materials. One of the reasons for the flooding in that parking lot and the severity of it is that from the southern border of the parking lot to the northern border, which is the edge of the escarpment, there's a change in elevation of approximately 8 to 9 feet. How do I know that? Because the town had surveyors out there 2 weeks surveying that property, and they told me that, okay? In that distance, you're creating a slope of approximately 4%. That is twice the slope that the railroads allow when they're laying track. So it's very steep, and the water is very rapid, and it passes all the drains that are there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So I got it. So we can't allow everybody to come up twice. So thank you for that information.
Forget what I just said.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. I'm going to motion.
Wait a minute.
What?
I would like to hear a response from the developer. We usually do that before we close the hearing.
I wasn't going to close the hearing, but okay.
Gonna keep it open.
Once again, Sean Hopkins, I would just acknowledge, we did hear some comments today, the comments about the drainage. We just, again, only became aware of them today. We'll take a look at it. I do want to reiterate one very important thing. Echo Park is a wonderful amenity. I agree with everyone that's spoken. We are not proposing to eliminate or modify that. And in fact, part of what's there today was accommodated at no cost by Elka Development. The concern way back when in 2013 was that this property, which had historically been utilized, especially in the winter as sledding, was on the site. And our insurance company said, well, we're not going to allow sledding because there's liability. Ellicott, in response to that, working closely with the town, donated to the town at no cost. Literally paid the transfer costs, the survey, the title search. So I think everyone needs to put this in the context of history. In terms of the rezoning, this is the exact zoning classification designated in your comprehensive plan. That's a result of a very lengthy vetting process. So clear as day, we meet that requirement. There are some particular aspects and concerns that have raised by residents. Give us an opportunity to take a look at those, and I will make sure I have the names of the individuals who spoke this evening, and we'll make an effort to follow up with them and maybe hold a possible informational meeting on site so we can talk those through in a less formal environment. Thank you.
Thank you. I would still like to see your client have a conversation with, I believe it's Benchmark that owns the building south of it.
Yeah, they're not going to grant an easement. I mean, we can have that discussion, but I've been down that pathway too many times. I would suggest that if the town asks for that to be considered, it's going to be much more likely to get approved.
Thank you.
Might be somebody.
Okay. I think we have one more speaker. It's fine.
Pull the microphone down and name and address.
Julie Colvin, 49 only. So, one, I think if you've ever been to this space, this diagram does not make it look, it is a small parcel of land they are trying to put these giant buildings on. And the two-story buildings with the 8 units, how many bedrooms are in each of those units?
2-bedroom units.
So there are 2-bedroom units in each of those. That's a lot of people, a lot of traffic, a lot of cars. I have a million other questions, but I'm not really prepared, but that one was just eating at me. I really wanted to know. It's a very, very, very small space. They're eliminating any green space. You said that you're also going to add apartments to that spot that you originally were going to do commercial. I don't know. I apologize. I'm not speaking well at all. It's if you've ever been there before, it's building completely to every ounce of space that they have there. And he kept mentioning that it was on Main Street, and no, I know it's on Edgar, but I kept hearing something about Main Street, and it was hard to hear back where we were. It is not designed for that traffic. It is not designed for that. So I apologize. This is really bad. I didn't have all my stuff. So I heard about this last minute and just showed up. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. We just want a good neighbor. And it doesn't feel like it's going to be a good neighbor.
So we're going to hold the public hearing open. We always do on zoning issues. So you'll have more opportunity to interact.
Okay, and again, I apologize. I did not speak well.
You were fine.
I'm like, thank you
for your comments.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay.
Hi, I'm Jessica Kerr. I'm at 22 Olney. I'm right near Ray. I have 2 teenage boys that go to Amherst High School. I don't know if you know this, but the high school does not bus for us, so all the high schoolers have to walk from our neighborhood over to Amherst High School on Main Street. So my 2 boys have to walk. I drive them in the morning, but coming down, I have to go down Crosby and then turn right by the apartments. It is a nightmare. I drive them every day, and I'm late to work every day because I don't want them to walk that way. They are getting to the age where they're going to be driving, and I also don't want them to go that way. So I just wanted to put that in. All the high schoolers in this neighborhood have to walk, and it's so dangerous to go that way. So sorry, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to.
Name and address, please.
John Sander. I live at 34 Olney Drive. As we all know, Eggert is a very busy road, and it's a problematic road. When you're crossing Main Street, you can't see what's further down Eggert. That goes down quite an incline as soon as you cross Main Street. So you have that issue with the driveway right at Crosby, and when you're crossing Main Street, people are trying to go through that light early in the morning. They're trying to get to work. They don't want to sit at that red light twice. So you have people that go very fast down Eggert Road, and that's something that needs to be addressed. Has a traffic analysis ever been done for that stretch of Eggert?
So Eggert Road, if there was a traffic analysis done with the Catalytion Center, I don't know, but the reality is the Catalytion Center would have generated hypothetically less traffic than a school. So guessing that it's a county road, we'd have to ask the county whether or not they've ever studied it. The quantity here isn't going to drive a traffic analysis, but it is. We did acknowledge that up front. I did mention that was one of the concerns this board's going to face through this process. So thank you for that. All right, seeing none, I'm going to motion to adjourn the public hearing to the August 21st.
Seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, thanks, everybody. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 626, which is a seeker determination on 3945 Wrench Road, Z 2023-02. I'm going to motion to adopt that resolution and accept the seeker determination.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 528, the adoption of local law to amend the zoning map 3945 Wrench Road, Z 2023-02. I'm going to motion to adopt that resolution and the local law to amend the zoning map at this time.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is public expression. I'm going to motion to open public expression at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hello, I'm Jerry DeCosmo from Meyer Road. I'm here for 2 things. First of all is about the parking signs that are on Meyer Road that limit parking from April 1st to August 1st. I was here last year and I spoke to you about that then. And because the Mel Ott Baseball Diamond is extended their season well through October, and now since the parking was restricted till August 1st, they come and park on our side of the road. And I did mention that to you last year, and you said that it was too late in the season to do anything about it, and nothing is done. I want to thank Deputy Buckeye, She responded to my email of July 12th and saying that she had sent the information to the engineering department. I haven't heard anything about changing signs. And potentially a thing to do would be to, instead of just limiting the time of parking, is to actually make no parking on the entire road, because now that we have the impending traffic upsets from the Costco, et cetera, projects, that's just going to add more traffic down those streets. So potentially making them just no parking would be even a better idea. So I just want to throw that out there. Also, I want to bring to your attention this article in the Amherst Bee from July 19th. And my discussion with the planning department today tells me that this article is actually fake news, that the site plan has not been approved.
It's incorrect, right? The
Yes.
site plan has not been approved.
Yes. And I think that I've spoken to people in the town who've read this, and they were like, oh, well, I guess it's just a go, you know? I mean, eventually it probably will be, but I think people should be aware that it is not. So I contacted the Amy Wallace, and she told me that, yes, it was just an oversight, and they would be putting in a correction, but I'm wondering if the town shouldn't contact them as well and ask for the correction to be a little more prominent, so that the people it's not just a back page like in a square that says, oh, we made a mistake, you know?
Yep.
Because I think that people in this town maybe are a little more concerned about this whole thing and should have the opportunity to speak up to it, and that the fact that it says that it's a done deal doesn't encourage them to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
May I, Supervisor, if I may? I'm a liaison to the Traffic Safety Board. My name is Mike Sukala. If there is an issue with parking, if you send me an email, we can get it added to the Traffic Safety Board agenda. I'll make sure I'll give you my card. Please send me an email. We'll add it to the agenda. It'll be discussed.
But I was here last year and talked about the exact same thing. I did. I brought it up, and you told me.
It's been referred to our engineering department. That is our traffic and safety. So the deputy supervisor did send it back over to them, so they'll go through an evaluation.
So it's not going to happen this year either, is what you're telling me?
I didn't say that. I said they'll get it through evaluation and go to traffic and safety, and they'll make a decision. It's not, our board doesn't manage all the roads and all the parking signs until we have a recommendation from traffic and safety. So
Okay.
that process is underway, and we'll
So
get to that point.
Traffic safety did not hear about it last year when I brought it up, is what you're telling me.
It was too late in the season to deal with it, so traffic and safety has yet to make a decision about it. We don't have, I don't have a recommendation, so.
We don't have anything in front of us.
I understand that, but I guess my point is that I brought the problem up last year in 2022, and I would have hoped that something would have been brought to the traffic safety before my having to bring it up again in 2023.
I can't answer that because I don't have anybody from traffic and safety here today, so we'll find out. You can contact one of our offices tomorrow, and we can let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Astridge, 159 Wood Acres Drive. I'm the parent of an incoming fifth grader at Transit who will be biking to school frequently throughout the school year and will need to utilize the crosswalk in front of Williamsville East High School to cross Paradise. This crosswalk is often ignored as a majority of car traffic does not stop for pedestrians or bicyclists waiting to cross. I'm here to request that a crosswalk similar to the one in front of Casey Middle School is installed in front of East High School. Like the crosswalk leading up to Casey Middle, the crosswalk in front of East should have bright reflective signs leading up to it, fresh crosswalk paint in the street, and a button to press that will activate blinking lights to further alert car traffic to stop. In addition to this, we do have a visually impaired child in our neighborhood who will require accessible pedestrian signals. He is registered with the town of Amherst.
This would provide an audio and vibrotactile indication when the button is pressed so that the person knows the signals have been activated. This will benefit the entire neighborhood, students, dog walkers, and anyone trying to cross safely at that location. As of last week, we started an online petition, and so far, after a couple days, have 166 signatures with a few comments on that. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Have you sent that request electronically yet?
No, we have not.
Could you you don't have to wait for the petition. Could you send
Sure.
the request so that we can get it started?
Absolutely. Is it to you, sir?
You can send it to me
Copy
or
my office.
Okay,
anyone.
great. We'll do that
Yeah,
tonight.
please.
Copy me too, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I'm gonna move to exit public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a consent agenda this evening. I'm going to ask our town clerk to please read the consent agenda.
Town Attorney 2, 3, 4, 5, Town Clerk 1, Building Maintenance 1, Withdrawn 2, 3, Controller 1, Contract Compliance 1, 2, Engineering 1, 2, 3, Finance 1, Highway 1, 2, 3, Human Resources 1, 2, 3, 4, Police 1, 2, Sewer Plant 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Communications 1, Record to Resolution 2023-529, 2 consent, 3 consent, 4 refer to attorney, 5 refer to attorney, and 6 refer to attorney.
Okay, I'm gonna motion to adopt this evening's consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 627, which is a senior center cafe and gift shop. It's a bond resolution in the amount of $200,000. First, I'm going to describe the project. So, the senior center has, if anybody's been in there, has a small cafe next to the kitchen, and it has a separate gift shop. Both of them require volunteer oversight. We've decided to combine the two and build a new space, and that'll be moved to the front of the building and accessible from the exterior. So there'll be an outdoor seating area associated with the park space that we're developing between the library and the senior center. That said, I'm going to first move to adopt the seeker findings associated with the bond resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'm going to motion the bond resolution as it appeared.
Second.
On the question, I would ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa.
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Buckeye.
Yes.
Councilmember Berger.
Yes.
Councilmember Lavin.
Yes.
And Councilmember Zucala.
Yes.
Okay, next I'm going to motion to exit the regular agenda for the purposes of adopting one suspension item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead.
There is a request from our Youth and Recreation Department, Mary Donna Pooley. It's entitled Authorization to Utilize Amrex Chemical Corporation, Inc. for pool chemicals for summer 2023. And she's asking us to please consider adoption of the following resolution as a suspension item at our meeting today. Whereas the town of Amherst had a valid contract for pool chemicals with Amrex Chemical Corporation, Inc. As a result of bid 2022-021. And whereas the bid included a provision for 2 6-month extensions. And whereas due to inflation, Amrex did not agree to extend the contract and did not notify the town in time to issue a new bid for the 2023 swim season. And whereas chemicals had to be ordered to ensure the safe opening and continued use of the town pools. And whereas Amrex does have appropriate insurances in place. And whereas by the time a new bid is issued and reviewed, the pools will be closed. Now therefore be it resolved that the Amherst Town Board authorizes the payment of invoices to Amrex Chemical Corporation, Inc. until such time as a new bid is issued and a new contract is awarded, and I so move.
Second.
All right, on the question, all in favor?
Aye.
With that, I'm going to motion to return to regular agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll motion to open a second round of public expression. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody have any other comments this evening? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to exit public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will motion to adjourn this evening's board meeting.